What if your greatest leadership asset wasn't being the smartest person in the room, but being the first to say, I don't know? Today's guest believes your dumbassery, and yes, you heard me right, is actually your superpower. Garry Ridge is the former CEO and chairman emeritus of the WD-40 company, where he spent 25 years not just growing a global brand, but building one of the most admired cultures in business with 93% employee engagement. Now he's the founder of The Learning Moment and the author of a new book, Any Dumbass Can Do It, which is a brutally honest, practical, and refreshing take on what real leadership looks like today. In this episode, Garry and I talk about psychological safety, building cultures of belonging, and the dangers of micromanagement, the power of learning moments, and why love, not ego, is actually what builds companies that last. This is a fantastic conversation because it ties right into the themes of the Conscious Entrepreneur Summit, which is coming up really soon on May 28th and 29th in Boulder, Colorado. At the summit, we bring in really experienced and inspiring and interesting CEOs and entrepreneurs for them to share their journey and their personal beliefs and the ups and downs of building their business, just like Garry does here. So if you are serious about growing your company, and I mean 10xing your company without losing yourself in the process, you're going to want to join us for furthering these types of conversations. So let's get into it. Please enjoy my conversation with Garry Ridge. Garry Ridge, great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me on the Conscious Entrepreneur podcast.
Hey, g'day, Alex. It's great to be with you. Thank you for the invite.
Yeah. I mean, I'm really excited about this. You're someone who has you've written 4 incredible books. You are the former CEO of WD-40, and now I believe the chairman emeritus, but someone very well known as the chief of the tribe. Someone very well known for creating a really spectacular company culture at WD-40, and now you've got a brand new book out. So congratulations on that, called
Thank you.
Any Dumbass Can Do It. Your 4th and, according to you, final book. And so, today I'm just looking forward to getting into some of the topics around leadership, trust, accountability, and so on. And let me just share something that I noticed recently and wanted to ask you about. There was a post on your LinkedIn sharing a story about one of the times back when one of your team members came into your office with a big problem, and sort of described it to you, and you, according to this post, sort of immediately jumped into problem solving, Mr. Fix-It mode. And what I remember from your story is you getting interrupted, right, and them saying, "Hey, Garry, don't worry, like, we got this. We just wanted to keep you in the loop." And that sounds like it was a real learning moment for you as a CEO and as a leader. Can you take us back to that moment? Like, what was going on in your mind, and how did that experience shape your leadership style?
Yeah, thank you. So, I think early in your journey of leadership, and that was early in my journey of leadership, we think that we have to have all the answers. We think that, we are there to be the ultimate problem solver. We want to be the micromanager. We want to run onto the field and steal the ball from the player and score, instead of understanding that our role is to bring out the brilliance of others. And I guess, with my new book, Any Dumbass Can Do It, I really gave myself a new title. I'm the Dean of Dumbassery, because I have really learned that dumbassery is your superpower. I think that any great leader, as they go through the journey, the earlier they can get the awareness of their behavior, and whether that behavior is adding to or taking away from the brilliance of those they have to lead, will be more successful, and more importantly, would add more value to those they have the privilege to lead.
And so on that, help us define dumbassery. What does that look like? How do I know if it really is a superpower?
Now, number one is you get very comfortable with the most important 3 words I've ever learned in my life: I don't know. And you get very comfortable with being able to admit that. And I have a story in the book. I remember way back, I'd just moved from Australia to the US, and I was not CEO. I was the head of our international expansion program. And I was in a meeting in one of our offices, and an outside consultant came in to present to us. And they were presenting this information, this proposal, I guess. And I'm sitting there, I'm thinking, I have no clue what you're talking about. I really do not understand. And about 10 minutes in, I put up my hand. I said, excuse me, not long in this country, but I am sorry, you've lost me. I'm not with you. And interestingly enough, Alex, everyone in the room went,
me too.
Me too. So I think, my friend Ron Carusi wrote a great book called To Be Honest. And he shared with me a statement that I think is very powerful. We need to not protect our own comfort zone at the expense of other people's development. And I think as early leaders, we tend to protect our own comfort zone, or we probably are protecting what we see as our ego. And dumbassery it's not about you. It's about the people that you have the privilege to lead. You have to have a people first mindset and understand that the only reason you exist, Alec, is to help those you have the privilege to lead play their best game. Because if they play their best game, you and the team win. But if you're not helping them play the best game, winning probably falls on your shoulder, and you are going to get burned out. You're going to get tired. You're going to get frustrated. And more importantly, people in your organization won't feel like they belong. They won't feel like they matter. They won't feel like they can make choices. They'll be disengaged, and they won't go home happy.
And I mean, this is such an issue for entrepreneurs who are naturally very action-oriented, natural problem solvers, natural leaders, want to jump in there and fix things, and sort of roll. Everyone's always told to roll up your sleeves and get your hands dirty, and stuff like that. What are your thoughts on how leaders can create an environment where the team members really do feel empowered and trusted? What does that take?
Yeah. Well, you have to build psychological safety, of course, but getting your hands dirty is fine. I mean, I look at the role of a leader as a coach. So if we think about a coach, let's think about the attributes of a great coach. Number one, a great coach, let's parallel that to the entrepreneur, understands the game that they want to play and have a pretty good idea of what it takes to win and what the prize looks like. But a great coach never, ever runs onto the field and steals the ball as the player is about to kick the goal. A great coach never runs to the podium and takes the cup from the person who deserves it. But a great coach always spends a lot of time in the stinky locker room, and that's getting your shoes dirty, because that's where they really understand off the field and on the field what's causing the play to go the way they wanted to or not go the way they wanted to. So, I think the important thing is you have to be very clear as an entrepreneur or a leader, what's our purpose? Where do we want to go? What does winning look like? But you cannot win the game on your own. You have to be the coach that helps those people play their best game.
So someone really empowering and enabling the rest of the team. You mentioned psychological safety. We've had Dr. Amy Edmondson on this show talking about that very topic. I know that she did a write-up for your new book. So tell me, how do you implement that? What does that look like? Because it strikes me as one of these concepts that sort of people get and they nod along to. But how does it really come to life for you? How did you establish that within WD-40?
Well, psychological safety, translated means I trust that I will be heard. I trust that I will be respected. Translation to me. And the biggest deterrent to having freedom within an organization is fear. So the first thing we need to do is remove or reduce the fear of failure. And Amy talks about that in her latest book, and the one before. So why are we calling failure in an organization? Hey, I just walk into my boss's office. Today I failed. Doesn't feel so good. So what we did is we said, we're going to reshape this. We're going to, instead of saying we had failures, we're going to have learning moments. Now, why is that powerful? Because learning is the basis of success. And the definition of a learning moment is a positive or negative outcome of any situation that needs to be openly and freely shared to benefit all people. So if you're in an organization and you have a positive learning moment, you're rewarded and applauded for sharing it. You don't want to keep it to yourself and take all that glory. Let's tell everybody so they can take advantage of it and they can amplify it. And if you have a negative learning moment, you're rewarded and applauded for sharing it because you want to help those that you work with, your teammates, your tribe mates, not have the same learning moment. Now, there's something special about that too. If you don't know the story of WD-40, let me tell it to you. Back in 1953 in San Diego, there was a small company called Rocket Chemical Company. They were, probably 5 employees. There was a problem with condensation and corrosion in the umbilical cord of the Atlas space rocket. So the chemists got together and started to formulate a solution. Solution 1 didn't work, nor did solution 5, and 15 was no good, and 22 was no better. 32 didn't work, nor did 36 or 37. 39 didn't work either. But guess what? Formula 40 worked. So it was named WD, water displacement 40th formula.
Okay.
So the product came from 39 learning moments. Now, I'm really happy they didn't stop at 39 because if they did, I wouldn't be talking to you today. But the other thing is I'm glad 39 didn't work because I don't think WD-39 sounds anything as good as WD-40.
So those are, I mean, that's a story of perseverance, sticking at it, but the learning moments as well. And you have since really become a champion of learning and of sharing these and of building these kinds of cultures. So that's become a big part of your work too, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I was privileged and honored to be the CEO of a U.S. public company for 25 years. What a great privilege that is. But I talk about it as my 25-year apprenticeship in leadership because I learned so much. And I truly believe that business has a responsibility and an opportunity to make a positive difference in the world. And we need that right now. Imagine a place where you go to work every day, you make a contribution to something bigger than yourself. You learn something new, you're protected and set free by a compelling set of values, and you go home happy. Happy people create happy families. Happy families create happy communities. Happy communities create happy countries. Happy countries create a happy world. And I don't think anyone would argue with me right now that a little happier world would not be a bad thing. So we can make a difference. So I see my purpose now is I help leaders build cultures of belonging where love, forgiveness, and learning inspire a happy, more connected world. And we can do that. We proved it at WD-40 Company. And more than ever now, people want a place of stability where they know they belong, they know they matter, and they know they can make choices. And leaders, and even dumbasses, can do that if they understand what the ingredients are that you need to put in place to build that culture of performance, love, forgiveness, and delivery.
So how does an entrepreneur who's just starting out, maybe they're at 5 people or maybe they're at 50 people, but they're committed to this, they agree with your vision, and they want to build in a culture of performance and forgiveness and love and learning and getting stuff done. What are the best places to start? So the reason I'm asking is, we have a lot of conversations where, and people on this podcast who talk about the big opportunities, the things that one might do here. And sometimes people then turn around and say afterwards, well, so how do I take the first step? What is the thing that I need to do immediately today? What sort of advice do you give to entrepreneurs around that?
Okay, so thank you. 4 things that'll make businesses successful. People, number 1. Purpose, number 2. Passion, number 3. And of course, products and services. So the first thing you do as an entrepreneurial leader is come to the conclusion that it's not about you, it's about the people you have the privilege to lead. So are you building what I call a tribal culture, a place where people come together to protect and feed each other with respect and dignity? To do that, you have to have a clearly defined purpose. So what's your purpose in the organization? You know, you could say at WD-40, our purpose was to stop squeaks. Well, duh. You know, I'm going to work today to stop squeaks. No, our purpose was to create positive, lasting memories. So we're in the memories business. So think about your organization, and it has to relate to your product. But what is the purpose of your organization? Then here's the foundation. Do you have a clearly defined, authentic set of values that protect people and set them free? Now, these values are not integrity and honesty and all that stuff. And I don't want to see them up on a wall. I want to see them on a piece of paper with lots of coffee stains on them. I want to see them in meetings where people talk about them. And they've got to be hierarchical. So people, purpose, values. Then you have a strategy, of course. And then you have execution. Now, if you can have the best strategy in the world, but if you don't have a high percentage of your people going to work each day, and I call that the will of the people, if you don't have a high will of the people who are enthusiastically executing against your strategy, you're going to have a lesser outcome than if you have a high percentage of people who are going to work every day. So financial business outcome is will of the people times strategy equals outcome. Most entrepreneurs and most business people spend a disproportionate amount of their time on the strategy part, and they don't get the people, purpose, and values part correct. And then, of course, you build psychological safety, which is having an atmosphere of learning moments. And then those things are on 4 pillars of care. You care and love your people enough, not only to reward them and applaud them for doing great work, but you're brave enough to redirect them when you need to. You have an organization of candor, no lying, no faking, no hiding. Most people don't lie. They fake and hide because of fear. You have clear accountability. What do I expect from you? What do you expect from me? And you have those open, caring conversations, and you have a organization of responsibility. And responsibility is the antidote for the very, very severe disease that is in most organizations, and it's called what I call the na disease. It's the finger pointing disease. And interestingly, at WD-40, we came up with a thing that we call the Maniac Pledge. And the Maniac Pledge is a pledge we all took to eliminate the finger pointing. And the Maniac Pledge says, I am responsible for taking action, asking questions, getting answers, and making decisions. I won't wait for someone to tell me. If I need to know, I'm responsible for asking. I have no right to be offended that I didn't get this sooner. And if I'm doing something others should know about, I'm responsible for telling them. And we all took that pledge, which was to treat the anti-responsibility finger-pointing disease.
Why'd you call it the Maniac Pledge?
At the time, I had a poster in my office of Greg Norman, the golfer.
Uh-huh.
And he used to have a hat with a shark on it. And it was called the Maniacal Shark. So I looked up one day and I thought, well, a shark is something that attacks something from time. But let's call it the Maniac Pledge. So you can see how much thought went into that.
Fair enough. I wanna come back and unpack some of the things that you were just talking about there, Garry. The first one out of curiosity is, what was the process within WD-40 to decide that our purpose is not to eliminate squeaks, it's to be in the memory business? What was that?
Well, if you think about what we delivered, if I mentioned the brand to anybody, they'd often say, I remember when. I remember when it solved my problem. I remember when I was working in the field with my grandpa and we used it on the tractor. I remember. So there was this, latent sort of thing around it. Our second value at the company that we had was we valued creating positive, lasting memories in all of our relationships. So the functional outcome of the product and what we wanted to be came together. So we could use that as saying, okay, We want to create positive, lasting memories with the end users who use our product, with the tribe members and the people who work in the organization, with the communities that give us the permission to operate in them, with the environment that we need to respect, and with the shareholders who trust us with their investment. So being in the memories business was something that gave us power across all of those things. And we used to sit in product development meetings, and we were designing new delivery systems. And the first thing we would ask, help us understand how this will create a positive, lasting memory with our end users. So it actually stopped us. So there's a chapter in the book called that's really focused on this: is your product is not necessarily your purpose. It's what do you deliver as an organization.
Yes. Well, you said that a lot of entrepreneurs spend too much time in strategy. A lot of entrepreneurs also spend too much time on the product.
Yeah.
Versus all the other parts of building a business. And you highlighted values in particular, and I want to understand a little bit more detail. You said values are there to protect people and also to set them free. Presumably because it creates a sort of standard of behavior and expectations around who we are and who we aren't as a company and the people who work there. What else would you add to that?
Well, what it does do also, it creates truly a feeling with the people that they can make choices. I'll give you an example. Alex, you work for WD-40 company. You work in supply chain. And someone comes into you one day and said, Alex, I'm going to make you a hero today. You are going to get promoted after this meeting. I have something for you that is just fantastic. And Alex said, tell me what it is, Alex. I want to know. So, well, I've looked at your product. There's an ingredient in there that we actually manufacture something that's equal to or maybe better than that ingredient. I've done some sums, and you're a public company. And I believe that if you were to replace, fill in the blank with fill in the blank, you can save $4 million a year. Are you ready to go up and see the CEO, Alex, and get a promotion? And your shareholders are going to love you. And you say, well, I'm really excited. Tell me more. So, well, yeah. And, there's one thing you need to know, though, and don't worry about it. It's not important. Everybody does it. You just have to put a little warning on your can. Something in this can, in the state of California, Prop 65 warning is known to create cancer. And Alex says, geez, sorry, can't do it. What do you mean? You're a public company. It's all about profit, right? Well, yes, profit is important. And our number 6 value is sustaining the WD-40 economy, which is about building a strong economy and profitability in our company. But our number 1 value is we value doing the right thing. And our number 2 value is creating positive, lasting memories. And cancer does not create positive, lasting memories. So I'm sorry. Well, you've misunderstood me, Alex. We got to go and talk to the CEO. You know what? You can talk to the CEO, the board of directors. You want to go out and talk to anyone you like. You are going to get exactly the same answer. So because of those values that were clearly defined and they were hierarchical, the number 1 value is more powerful than number 2, and number 2 is more powerful than number 3. You were protected, and we set you free. You go up to the CEO's office and says, Alex, what are you here for? I said, I just want to tell you how I didn't save $4 million. Tell me more. I did this. Fantastic. Employee of the month because you've lived our values.
Right. Got it. Okay. So it's a set of norms and behaviors on what we're going to do. And like you're saying, they protect me because we all agree on what those are. And therefore my decisions and my choices are, as long as they're backed up by those values and consistent with those values, then fine. And if I do things that are inconsistent, then that's obviously a totally different conversation.
Absolutely. But it's there because there's this guy who's sitting in the supply chain somewhere down in the organization that was empowered to make a $4 million decision. How does he feel? Oh, I'm empowered. I feel good. I matter. They trust me.
And now is the third P that you mentioned, passion, is that the same as the will of the people?
Well, no. You can't have passion without a high will of the people, because passion is really about the outcome of what you do. You're passionate about what you do. You feel good about what you do. It really is aligned very much with do I matter in the organization. Now, I'm going to repeat myself. 3 things where you start. Do you and have you created an atmosphere in your organization, a culture where people know they belong and feel like they belong? Have you created an atmosphere where people know they matter and feel like they matter? Have you created an atmosphere where people are free and protected because they can make choices that they're going to be supported. So with that then becomes passionate. They become passionate about the delivery of what they do. They feel good. Aristotle was born in 384 BC. He worked this out. We're just slow learners. Pleasure in the job puts perfection in the work. Our job as leaders is to put pleasure in the work. And that's not foos tables and ping pong tables and margarita parties and pizza. It's meaningful work that people feel good about in an atmosphere where they feel safe and respected.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. One of the things, when taken to the extreme, or certainly something that a lot of entrepreneurs experience, is maybe it's too much passion, but let's call it instead working themselves to exhaustion or burnout. And I mean, even you yourself, like you've built that you're part of WD-40 for lots and lots of years, built this incredibly engaged company, well known for its leadership style. So you did all that. You also then needed to keep your energy high. You've been not only CEO, but also a speaker. You've written 4 books. You've been a teacher and consultant. How do you, and what's brought your broader advice for or philosophy on avoiding burnout in this way?
Alec, there was one word you used a couple of times that was incorrect.
Okay.
You. The word you did it. I didn't do it.
Okay, great.
I enabled a culture where we all did it. Now, let me go back to my little story about the coach running onto the field. If you're in an organization and you are running onto the field all the time, kicking the ball, having to have all the answers, doing all the stuff, you are going to get burned out. Now, you've got to take the time to help those around you actually, get to do the work and have the responsibility. So that's what it's all about. I want to introduce you to someone that I've got with me today that is not very desirable, but I talk about him and her a little bit. So I just want to introduce you because there's some entrepreneurs out there that might know this person. They might have a little bit of this person in them. So, this might be a little bit of a...
do it. Let's do it. We're on camera, so whoever's watching this on video can see it. Yeah.
This is Alec, Smart Alec. Smart Alec is the soul-sucking CEO or the soul-sucking leader. They not only suck the soul out of their organization, they suck the soul out of themselves. And here are some of the attributes of Alec. Alec has a big ego. His ego eats his empathy instead of his empathy eating his ego. Or it could be Alice, right? It could be Alice. They're a micromanager. They want to be in everything. They think that they have all the answers, and they do, even the wrong ones. They must always be right. They hate feedback. They want, in some cases, a fear-based culture. So, those are sort of the attributes versus if you were to look at a servant leader loves and involves their people. They're always in servant leadership mode. They love learning and expected to be competent. They're connected with emotional intelligence. You'll find them in that dirty locker room and down in the bowels of the organization and out on the streets with their people. They love learning moments because they know the learning moment is just one decision short of brilliance. They have a heart of gold, but they have a backbone of steel. They are champions of hope. They know micromanagement is not scalable, and that's very important. They do what they say they're going to do, and they love feedback. So, I think those are the sort of things. And that's really hard when you start. When I first was given the opportunity to lead WD-40, I had many of Alec's attributes at some level of abundance. And it's only when I went back to school and I did my master's degree in leadership, and that's where I met my dear friend and my mentor, Dr. Ken Blanchard, and I learned all this stuff. And then I was brave enough to try it, that we actually saw the difference that it made. And that's why 98% of people at WD-40 company said they love to tell people they work at the company, and 93% employee engagement, and 97% of them said they respect their coach. Now, their coach is their boss. 97% of people love their boss, and most people leave the company because they hate their boss. And why did they say they love their boss? Is because when we ask them the question or respect their coach, The coach is there for one reason, to help me succeed, be better, and do the great things I want to do in life.
Mm. Yeah, cool. I like that, and I like the fact that you got that little mannequin doll there for you to remind us all. I think we all have some of that on our shoulders, don't we?
Absolutely.
Another thing that I've heard is I've heard you say, and this essentially has to do with always being the hardest worker, right? To what we were saying before. I've heard you say, if you're always the hero, then you're not leading. So if you're always the one, presumably the coach out there trying to steal the ball from the players, you're not leading. But tell us more about that. What do you mean by that? And what is the real leadership aspect there? Is it purely this notion of servant leadership and I'm there to help my others to succeed? Are there other nuances?
Yeah, basically that's what it is. And, I think that a leader has to lead the way. So, your behavior and what you project to the organization. Any culture is just a shadow of the leader. And remember, a fish rots from the head. So, if you've got that happening in the organization, it's going to spread from the leadership, whether it's you as the leader or someone else. And that's the other thing that I've observed in entrepreneurial companies where, leaders in entrepreneurial companies, particularly owners, put up with bad behavior because someone's successful. And all that does is create cancer within the organization. When I was at school, I'm an Aussie, an Australian. I went to school in Sydney. When I was at school in my high school class, my science teacher gave me a petri dish. And the science teacher said, what we're going to do is we're going to grow culture in this petri dish. Now, there's two things you have to really focus on here, Gary. Number one is to build or grow the culture you want, are you putting in the right ingredients? And number two, are you as the owner of the petri dish or the owner of the culture feeding the good ingredients to grow what you need to grow? But are you brave enough to attack the toxins early enough so they don't eat all of the good ingredients? And I think that's a learning moment that we've all had over time where Alex is in the company, he's hitting sales goals every day, but he's a SOB, everybody hates him. And what does everyone else say in the organization? Well, they don't care about me. As long as I, get the result, then I can act like a fill in the blank person. So I think that's something to really be aware of.
Yeah, fair enough. You also use the word love a lot. We don't hear, it's not a very common business word, right? People talk about love in the company, love in leadership. What does it actually look like on a day-to-day basis? How do we get out of just saying the word and feeling it instead?
If you know Alan Mulally, one of the great leaders in the United States, turned forward around, was head of Boeing. He signs off, love them up. And love them up means showing people you care about them, showing them that they belong, showing them that they matter. Those are the important things. And if you think of Maslow's hierarchy to self-actualization, the third row up is love and belonging, which really means, do I belong? Am I connected? I'm not talking about romance. I'm talking about truly showing people that you care about them. Love is a exaggerated state of care, and I think that's what's really important. How many times? The first chapter in my book is called "Are You Okay?" How many times as leaders have, instead of going into a meeting and getting straight into the why haven't we got so, it's just, hey, Alex, are you okay? What's going on in your life? Is anything getting in your way? How can I be better for you? What can I do to be a better leader for you? All of those sort of things are really, really important, and really mean it and do something about it. Writing little notes to people was one of the simplest things you can do. I wrote thousands of notes over my time. And even as I was finishing my role at WD-40 and traveling around the world, in people's cubicles was a little note that I had written to them 5 years ago, and it's still there. And I said, why is that there? I said, well, you really care, and it's those sort of things that are so important.
That's really beautiful and inspiring. Any last thoughts on maybe the new book? Any Dumbass Can Do It? Anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure that the audience is aware of?
Well, there's one thing the audience can do is they can take the Dumbass quiz. If
Yes,
you
up
want
on
to,
the website. Yeah.
yes. So go to the website and take the dumbass quiz. It will give you a fairly basic report card of where you are on your level of now. But remember, Alex, dumbass is your superpower. Dumbass is your superpower. So they can take the quiz and then they will get a PDF playbook mailed to them that'll show them, 4 or 5 things they can implement immediately if they choose to make a difference.
All right. And that's up at the learning moment, right?
Thelearningmoment.net.
Right. Okay. Fantastic. Well, hey, Garry Ridge, really appreciate you being here because you bring such a wealth of experience around how to run a company, how to think about it, how to love your people, how to have purpose, and how to really bring something beautiful to life. And I think all of us here, we all are supporting this idea that we can build better companies and better teams and a better planet as a result. So really appreciate you joining us here today.
Yeah. Thank you, Alex. And remember, life's a gift. Don't send it back unwrapped.
Thank you.